Radio check. You guys hear me okay?
Hi, Fred. Yeah, we can hear you great. Thanks. We're just going to get going here in a second. I think we want to wait and see if another member or two of the AAC show up.
Radio check. You guys hear me okay?
Can hear you.
Same thing here. Can you hear from Larry?
I can hear you, Larry.
Okay, good.
Hey, we're just getting a crazy delay, so we're just looking into it.
Is that delay any better now?
I'll do a test. How's my delay? 1, 2, 3.
Well, we heard that, Fred. If that happened right now, then there's no delay.
I can reply to you right away too, Alex. So it's okay here.
I can hear you guys fine.
You can see me, Larry. There's no delay anymore. Awesome. Okay, looks like we got to figure it out. We'll give it one more minute, and then we'll be ready to get going. Okay, looks like we've got a few members here. We have Ray online there. I don't know if you could hear us, Ray, but I think we are ready to go. So Fred, you are the chairperson normally. Are you able to chair remotely?
I would prefer not to if possible. I'm kind of halfway home right now, and I might pop in and out of service.
Okay.
I'll be better in 10 minutes, but I'm sketchy here.
This is advisory committee. Yeah. So if one of the other members would be willing to their name forward to act as chairperson for the day, that would be helpful. Can you use your microphone then? Thank you. All right, we have a chairperson. Actually, if there could be a motion from the AAC, that would be helpful for us.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Seconded by Russell Dyson. All in favor of that motion? You are appointed.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I can see from here. If you're on screen, please just speak up because I'm not always watching the screen for you on screen. So, all right. So I will call this this Agricultural Advisory Committee meeting to order and recognize they're happening here. Notice to the attendees and delegates that this meeting is being recorded and live streams to YouTube on the Regional District website. Introductions coming from committee members, staff in the boardroom via Zoom. So start with Alex Dyer.
Thank you. We can start. I'm Alex Dyer. I'm the general manager of planning and development, and I just want to note before we get going to just to recognize that we're conducting a meeting on the territories of Shawnee people to appreciate that fact. So thank you. Pass it over to Amy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Amy Needham, Sustainability Planner for the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Hamling from Prism Land Surveying, and I'm a land development coordinator.
Hi, I'm Neil Bowder from Prism Land Surveying. I'm a BC Land Surveyor.
I'm Colin Fry, Colin Fry and Associates Consulting. I'm the agent of record for the Stamp River application.
Hi there, Patrick Giesbrecht with G&Co, and I'm here as a part of the Stamp River application as well. Thanks.
Lisa Ehlard, Stonehaven Farm. I'm also a director at the Farmers Institute, and I'm the representative for District A Farmers Institute as well.
Good evening, I'm Russell Dyson, and I'm a member of the Agriculture Advisory Committee and a member of the Coleman Meadows Farm Dairy, Water Buffalo and the Conventional Dairy. And just want to acknowledge the applicants for coming tonight, not only to be at the meeting and explain your applications, but to be here in person. It's commendable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm Penny Cody. I'm chair tonight, representing Sprout Lake electoral area and on the Agricultural Advisory Committee. We do have a number of people in the audience. So we'll go online and we'll start with Ray Dahl.
Hello, I am Ray Dahl. I am the president of the Alberni Farmers Institute, as well as a local farmer and a member of the Agricultural Committee.
Thank you. Then Fred, then Ray, or Larry?
Larry McMahon. I'm a member of the, excuse me, AAC. My background is agriculture finance.
Thank you. And Fred?
Chair Fred Boyko, electoral area director for Beaufort.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and we have an agenda before us. Do we want to have someone make a recommendation to accept the agenda? Is there any addition?
So
Thank you. Second? Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Is there any declarations, conflicts of interest? Hearing none, we'll move on. So we have minutes from the Agriculture Advisory Committee meeting held October the 9th. Is there someone ready to move adoption, or is there any corrections or changes?
move adoption.
Thank you. Seconder? Okay, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, petitions, delegations, and presentations. Do we have? No, okay. No correspondence. Request for decision. So we're right into plating matters. So we've got the Stamp River Enterprise Corp, Beaver Creek Road, agricultural subdivision application. Does this go to staff or?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'd be happy
thank
to
you.
speak to that. And then we do have a number of representatives as you've heard here, and I'll pass it over to them. But just to give you a broad overview of the property, this is a 42.2 hectare property, just over 100 acres on Beaver Creek Road. It is vacant right now. The property is split with approximately 15.3 hectares within the ALR. That is closer up to the roadway, and then another 26.9 hectares located just outside the ALR, and that being most of the land along the waterfront. It is a long has a long river frontage on this property, as you can see from the maps. What the application we have before you here is essentially a 2-lot subdivision where the applicants are intending to split the non-ALR portion off of the ALR portion, and have submitted a few different access road options. Essentially, what needs to happen is that they need to dedicate some road from Beaver Creek Road down to the non-ALR land so they can facilitate some future subdivision that they have plans for. So a lot of work has gone into this, as you can see in the package. We do have some discussion points on the official community plan and the zoning there, both requiring a 2-hectare minimum lot size. So for this subdivision, this 2-lot subdivision, that would obviously meet those requirements. This would be step 1 in their future intended subdivision, which would be 10 Bearland strata lots along the riverfront, and then maintaining the ALR portion as farmland within one chunk. Again, that would meet the requirements of the zoning in the future, but at this point we are just looking at that 2-lot subdivision within the ALR. I'll also highlight that the applicants have applied for farm status recently, so they did. They are intending to plant and seed about 20 acres of land, I believe, on the ALR portion, with the intention to grow hay, and have been doing the land clearing associated with that over the last year or so. The legwork for this project has also involved some initial First Nations engagement as well. So a lot of effort has been put into that by the applicants, and with the package here for you today, we do have letters of support that have been submitted from Sushot First Nations as well as Hupetchesip. There are some aspects that are noted within those letters. Most notably, there is a site that requires protection along the waterfront there, and the Hupetchesip letter does recommend a 50-meter non-development buffer around that site. And then the letters also note some commitment to signage and recognition of the territories and hopefully utilizing the shot language for that fact. So there is a report that has been prepared by Aquila Archaeology. In that report, they also recommend that it's an archaeological overview assessment. So in that report, they do recommend that an archaeological impact assessment take place for any development that would be planned near lands that might have more impact to cultural materials there. So more work to come there. That would be a requirement of subdivision. Beyond that, the other requirements for subdivision that we'd be looking at would be reports from a qualified environmental professional that would deal with the riparian area protection as well. So there's a long, as I mentioned, a long river frontage on this property, and the development permit area includes 30 meters along that. So they would be spending a lot of effort in maintaining or ensuring that the development will maintain the ecological integrity of that site. And related to that as well, there are some steep slopes along the bank as well that they will leave a geotechnical engineer to have a look at if there's any development plan near those areas. Wastewater practitioner, so a registered on-site wastewater practitioner would be engaged to ensure that they can meet the sewage disposal requirements there, especially for those lots down by the water. And then there are some additional requirements for Beaver Creek water system connection, for example. But that is kind of getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. What we're looking at right now is the 2-lot subdivision, which will essentially cut access from the or divide the ALR from the non-ALR. And to that point, there are 3 access options that are presented in the package. I will let the applicant speak to their preferred option, but just to highlight what the ACRD staff is looking at would be access option C, and that is having the 2 access roads, one along the north boundary of the property and one along the east boundary. And the reason there would be that it would maintain one contiguous block of ALR land within the middle of the property and would not split that by road, whereas as options A and B would do that. I think at that I will leave it there. The staff recommendation again is that we would recommend that this proceed to the ALC for a decision, and that the ACRD note that access option C would be the preferred method. But certainly open to any questions and discussions about that. But before I do that, maybe I'll pass it over to you, Colin, if you'd like to add any comments, and just use your microphone there if you can. Thank you.
Before I start, I'd like to just ask Patrick to make an introduction from the audience.
I just wanted to point out that the chief of Tushat First Nation is here with us tonight. Thanks for being here, Chief Ken.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity to come. I was happy to come over here because I'll begin by giving John Campbell's regrets for not coming. He's had some issues that take him over to the mainland for a while, so he unfortunately couldn't make it. As Alex has pointed out, the first item that we wanted to mention is that there is an agricultural objective here for Stamp River, and it's commenced with the application for BC assessment farm status classification. It has, as my understanding, it hasn't been granted yet, but he's working towards meeting the requirements, and he's starting with an initial 20 acres, and there's plans to develop the agricultural uses incrementally on the property. And so this is the report, and I want to thank the staff for working with us. It's been great to have that feedback all along. And so I come here today specifically to just speak to the points, some points in the staff or in the planning report. And it's basically going to surround or involve the discussion on which option we looked at. And it's not a challenge of the recommendation. It's more so a belief of mine that there needs to be some detailed information at how we arrived at and arrived at our option, which is option A. And I'll be the first to admit, with all my experience at the commission over the years, when you looked at that first initial cut and looked at that, it looked like it's trisecting the property. Wouldn't there be a way of keeping it as a contiguous landform? And so I felt that, and so I felt that there was a need to inform people like yourself who are going to be advising the board how we arrived at this, and I can assure you it was arrived at it looking at the agricultural issues. And so I that's what I want to speak to primarily, and effectively, if there's in your maps, the maps are excellent, by the way, and they're all showing the landform that's challenging us, and it's the ravine that basically separates the non-ALR component into two halves, and you can't access what I'll call the southeastern portion from the northwestern portion because of the ravine and the topography there. So we said, okay, well, we have to come through the ALR, and where do we believe would be the best way of doing it? In the package as well is an analysis I did of the three options. And it boils down to, first and foremost, we were using basically the existing access point off Beaver Creek Road. There was a road that went into the property from there. So part of the argument was that it's using part of an existing, albeit smaller road, but that was the motivation. The next thing we went, and staff correctly pointed it out, the purposes of the commission is to maintain the integrity of the commission and be cognizant of the size of the ALR when you're making these decisions. And that was guiding us in a review, because we collectively said, if we're going to go for this option, we have to explain why we didn't go for the other options. And it boiled down to it's using more land, more ALR land, and better ALR land than the preferred option A. And we also tried to get to a situation where you could have no net loss, and then we looked at including the land, and we've achieved that with option A. We can't achieve that with the other options. So that was a factor. And my experience with the commission, I don't want to say that too often because it sounds like I'm touting my own horn and I'm not, is the commission over the years had a policy of what they call up, not out. In this case, it meant really to turn around and say, we have so much pressure on the ALR land that we're going to start encouraging people to, for example, in the Okanagan, get up in the hills, right? Get out of the ALR and take that pressure off. But at the same time, the commission recognized there has to be an ability to access those lands. And it was commonplace to see applications come in for getting access for lands beyond, as it were. And so, and they were usually fairly well received. In some cases, in all cases, they attempted to minimize the impact on the ALR, of course. But there was also occasions where they had to deal with problematic properties. And so it is an established, or it has been an established practice to encourage developing non-ALR lands in order to take the pressure off of people constantly applying to the commission to develop good land, right? So this was a situation where we could have subdivided along the ALR boundary without the need for commission approval because that's permitted under the legislation. But we got caught up with the access point again. So we wanted to minimize the incursion into the ALR as far as area. We wanted to offset that with the inclusions. And as I said, if we could have put it on a perimeter of the property, that would have been a serious option to consider. But because the non-ALR portion is basically two distinct portions, you had to have two accesses. And having two accesses obviously doubles or triples the amount of land you're going to have to use. So we thought the straight-on shot was good. And for the option, the preferred option A, you'll see the fork in the road as it approaches the ALR boundary. That was because of trying to manage the river that separates the two, to go around both sides of it, and then having one side deal with the southeast and one side deal with the northwest. So that's the reason we did that. I have also researched some commission decision relatively recently, but it speaks to, I've got it written down, it speaks to the similarities with this one. I'm not saying they're exactly the same, but I'm just saying, speaking to my point on road location, it's speaking to the similarities. And I'll just start off by prefacing it, and then I'll show you the property I'm talking about. It involves a property about 16 hectares, so about 40 acres in Harrison Hot Springs. I tried to get one for here, but I couldn't find one right off the bat. But the shared characteristics I want you to keep in mind for when I go over them is that both parcels, here I can give you this, Alex, so they can see the both properties have an ALR and a non-ALR component. The ALR component of this particular property is prime agricultural land, actively farmed, and the back is forested hillside, similar to the non-ALR portion of this property. Both parcels can't access the non-ALR land without crossing into the ALR. The access that's requested is for residential subdivision purposes, in this case, a five lot subdivision. And what I'll show you from the example is the commission approved this application for access and actually bisected the property. And they did that of their own will, believing it was the nature of the land that caused the incursion into the field. So I can speak pretty much to these without seeing them, and I'm going to leave these with you just so that you have it. And again, this is all factoring into how we arrived at our decision. And part of that mindset is the commission was open to these types of requests if there's a merit to it. If the ravine wasn't a problem, we can again get to that. we could have perhaps had other options. So going through these, what I'll do, there's actually 4 applications where the iterative process is the first application came to put a road straight along the southern boundary of that property. That was ratified through a subsequent application. Oh, the other thing it merits noting in this application, there was also an inclusion component to including some of the non-ALR land into the ALR. Not the rocky stuff, but stuff that was being farmed that just happened to fall outside the ALR. And then it was subsequently ratified most recently in June of 2024. And basically the conclusion was, and again, this will be provided. Let's see it here. Now, the deviation from the southern boundary was as a result of interaction with the other levels of approving of or transportation highways and Ministry of Environment. There happens to be a creek that has to be straddled to get to the non-ALR component. And when they did that, they found out, and it was recommended by Environment, that if you went straight through the non-ALR component, it would expand the crossing of the creek and making it a much tougher and much more significant bridging. They recommended the crossing be moved northward, and I will give you this. We have it says here, the panel finds that the proposed deviation from the permitted original decision for the access is minimal and has no substantive impact on the property size or agricultural capability and potential, and therefore appropriate given the location of the water course. And this is the one I wanted to show. Pass it around. Keeping in mind the original approval was to go straight along the south boundary, and this one is now showing a deviation, which a conscious decision of the commission allowed the bisection of that land, a much better land actually than the land under application here. And it did it in a manner that it addressed the locational circumstances of the property, and it was offset with the inclusion and the fact that the considered offset was considered to be appropriate given the watercourse issues. So I point that out to say that the commission, in a broad brush or in a broadly stated, would probably, admittedly, like to keep the ALR component contiguous, but in the cases where it's not practical or there's other factors that can be addressed or factors that can't be addressed by the nature of the land, they're willing to consider other opportunities. And so that being said, it kind of arrives, so we've addressed the concerns of the policies of the regional district. We've taken into consideration the mandate of the commission. We've looked at the historical approach to the commission in getting to lands beyond. We've cited an example just to show you that it can be done from the commission relatively recently. And the other thing I want to know, and I'll speak to the members that are farming will know, and I don't say this facetiously, we're not putting the Alberni Highway through this property. And there's ways to mitigate that. There's ways to ensure unfettered access through registrable documents. And the owner is the owner. If he's impacting anybody, it's himself. But if he was going to run animals, for example, I've seen where they'd fence it and put gates out, and when he's moving the animals, they'll put the gates over it and it'll block the road. So this is something, and the commission's test for roads as an impediment is pretty significant, right? And it would mean that free access to and from the land for farming is seriously jeopardized, both from a safety perspective, animal safety perspective, moving equipment, speed, volume of that. So this is a 10 or 11 lot subdivision. And at least at this point, That's the volume of traffic that we consider. And so it's deemed to be in my view anyway. Yes, it looks like it's separating the land into two distinct parts, but the land is not fettered in the use of either side with that. I've said enough for now. I wanted to leave time for questions if there were any. So is that okay? Yep. So I just wanted to bring it around to how we arrived at A rather than C. And C is in fact the largest use of the land and the most good agricultural land that would be used if those were the options to pursue. So.
Thank you. Anything to add? Staff? Is there any questions? Lisa?
I'm just curious down on the plateau there, just what kind of quality soils that would be, because it's right down along the river, so I would think there's silted.
There's an excellent map here that was provided by the regional district, and it's got the agricultural capability ratings on it. And the area on the south is primarily along the river is primarily class 7 topography rated. And I've never seen the way it's written before, but I was a little stumped by what the 10 was. But then I meant that's 100%, right? Yeah. So that it's also important to note too, if you look at that polygon of class 7, it actually has a fair bit encumbering the ALR portion as well. So that treed area basically in the northwest corner in a linear strip along the ALR boundary, that's all class 7 land too. And had we still had the ability to apply for exclusion to exclude that area, that was something I floated as a possibility, but we don't have that ability anymore. And the other aspect, most primarily on the northwest portion, is class 5, with stoniness and aridity as a limiting factor. And then right in the middle, I don't know if you can see this one. For those, I apologize on the screen, but the ravine is shown right there, and that's what has to get gotten around, and that's what's compelled the fork.
Thank you. Ray, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. So with a road, regardless whether it's A, B, or C in this type of application, would that be a legal gazetted road and therefore have certain standards and widths, et cetera? Or what would that look like from the composition or the legal standpoint?
Oh, thank you for the question. That's a good question. We've had that ourselves, and going into this, because of the nature of the future subdivision request, there's a lot of items to be resolved by other agencies, and the purpose of the ALR application was simply to provide an access through the ALR to get to the non-ALR in whatever form will be appropriate for subsequent approving authorities. We tried to talk to highways, or my associates tried to talk to highways, and there's only so far they can go as to what type of road until they know if the commission's going to allow it or not, because they don't want to spend any time on that. And if the commission says, no, we don't want a road through there, perhaps in another location, but if we don't want a road through there, it makes the matter moot. So it's difficult. I'm not trying to practice avoidance in this response. It could be a strata common property. It could be a public road. It could be any variation of that, depending on where the development settles out. And emergency servicing will factor into that as well. Right. So that's right now we're trying to get the agencies that follow the commission the comfort that they're pursuing something that the commission is prepared to sanction. Might we have to go to the commission back for tweaking it, for refinement, maybe. And I think if the commission can get over the hurdle of providing access, I think at that point, they would also be, like I did in my example, saying that that was approved. It was a two-dimensional decision on paper. Straight lines are great. But once they got into talking to the Ministry of Environment and Highways, they said, that's not going to cut it. And so the commission went back and said, yeah, that's reasonable, right? And it's reasonable because if they start denying, if the commission starts to deny access to lands beyond, that's making everybody's job a lot more difficult in those circumstances to address issues of residential or other development by local governments, right? So I would not have myself recommended if I didn't firmly believe that it can function. It will provide a road for the farm as well, right? And it's going to provide probably a better upgraded farm road. It's going to provide access to both sides of the road for farming. And it's going to result in, when the dust is settled, that the land that is used for the road in the preferred option is overcompensated for by, say, it's well compensated for by the inclusions of the land. And to come full circle, we would like the support of the agencies to allow us to engage with the commission regarding the road. And if they say it's approved, then we can really start putting the meat on the bones with respect to dealing with other agencies.
Russell?
Yeah, I've got a number of questions, but I'll start just with the ones that pertain to the road, which is our current discussion. And that is it still a requirement of the Land Title Act that there be dedication to stream beds, rivers, or otherwise? Could there be a requirement imposed by the approving officer that there is public access all the way to the river?
Yeah, I'll handle this one here. Yes. But we're in our conversation so far with the Ministry of Transportation, we can't get too many answers because we're still pretty early in the application without an access through the ALR portion. That it's kind of moot. There's no reason having that discussion. But certainly, yeah, there's a couple of avenues for the ministry to ask for access to the riverfront, either through, if it ends up being a strata development, through the Strata Property Act or through the Land Title Act.
So will your layout of roads that goes through ourselves, then the ALC, be a factor in where the locations of those public accesses will be, or does the approving officer just have a standard and he will say on this side and that side of the property?
Yeah, no, there's so the way it works is in a rural property with parcels this size, it would be every 400 meters would be the requirement. In this case, there's approximately 1.5 kilometers riverfront. So I don't think the expectation would be that there would have to be 3 or 4 access. It might be a singular access, or it may be none. They may waive this requirement. And they would likely be through the provided access that we have for the development.
Thanks. And just one other question on access, and that is, are there historical informal accesses across this property to the river at present? And could that be a factor when you say, oh, the roads will only ever be used for, you know, the 10 lots or whatever is proposed, that in fact there may be already historical public access, maybe informal, not permitted, but there is a desire to get to the river. There could very well be other access across the ALR lands to the river as a result.
Yeah, that's correct. There has been historical access across this property to the prominent rock on the riverfront and other parcels, other parts of that waterfront there.
Yes, and it's that the first part of that historical road is the access off Beaver Creek Road where it is now coming in off that property. And if I remember correctly on the aerial photograph, that it basically comes down from here in this direction, right? And that, as John explained to me, was historical access to the river. I think if it comes to that, involving the ALR in a subsequent review, I think our initial reaction would be to try and come up with alternatives that do not go through the ALR any further. Whether we can achieve that, I don't know, but that's not our preferred option, but it will again remain to see what the other agencies want. But if we can steer them towards, for example, the road, option A, there might be opportunities to then accommodate water access from the non-ALR side. So I don't know how they do that. If they want, no, we have to have that trail, right? But if we can say, well, we can come in on part of it and then go over here, and that's going to minimize the impact on agriculture or eliminate further impact on agriculture. That would be our objective at that point if it comes to that.
So I have a question about water access. Provided this application, you get to do your subdivision. I'm not sure what it is, but Sprout Lake has to have a access point every so many feet or lots. Will that happen here as well?
Yeah, and that's part of what I was answering before, is that there is a couple opportunities for the Ministry of Transportation to require this access, either through the Strata Property Act or through the Land Title Act subdivision. We haven't shown that in the proposal as it is right now. We have some ideas on potential access points if it is required through there, but certainly the historical access that we're proposing as option A through the ALR area it would be preferred if this is to be the case, and also that it wouldn't be multiple. A lot of it is sort of inaccessible riverfront anyways, like it's high bank down to the river, so there's really only a few locations where you would actually be able to access the river without jumping off some small ledge into the river.
Are there any other questions at all? Oh, Lisa?
Just curious about the water. I mean, I know on our place it bubbles out of the ground in the wintertime, so I'm just curious where water courses could possibly be, but can't really see anything on the map. I'm just curious.
Yeah, there's a series of small water courses crossing the property that some of them originate on the property. Most of them, I believe, do originate on the property. I'm not sure their wintertime flows, how heavy it is at this stage.
Fred?
Thank you, Chair. So my question relates to water access as well, because traditionally this has been a place for launching inner tubes to go down at a place that's relatively safe historically to go down the river. And if we're going to require, how do you want to say, water access to public, my request would be to re-energize, apply the ability for people to do that, because that is a nice, safe place to do it. And historically that has been done. So that would be my request. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to add further to that, the discussion that we're having around the water access is on the subsequent development, not for the ALR request. The ALR request is simply just to get there. And then the discussion after that, we'll have to move forward with the requisite reviews by all the other agencies. But for this purpose right now, I wouldn't want the ALR application to live or die on what may or may not happen with the water access at this point.
No, that's a very good point. But my question about the access is, option A is the one that's preferred by the landowner. Option C is the one that's preferred by staff, because we don't have to have ALR things or lose land for the ALR for option C. Is that correct?
Sorry? No, sorry? Okay.
Option A is preferred by the landowner.
Right.
Option C is preferred by staff because there's no impact to ALR. Is that correct?
No, the as I understand it from the report, is the option C is preferred to eliminate the perception of an impediment caused by the road going through option as delineated by option A in the middle of the property. Our argument for option A is that only a fraction of usable land or the far less land is used in the ALR for option A, as opposed to more use of land that could be used by John for farming along the eastern boundary and northern boundary. They're longer access points, they're better land, they're not as susceptible to the severity of topography at that point. And so when we looked at that, we said, well, the commission says you have to be cognizant and mindful of the size of the ALR. So what we said is, okay, how do we implement a legitimate access request while at the same time reducing impact to the ALR and in fact enhancing the ALR through the inclusion. So the difference between the two is we have taken the position that the road in the middle of the property is the best option to preserve as much ALR land as possible. And at the same time, our recognition that the land, regardless of the road's existence, the land can be used for farming. A larger area can be used for farming, unfettered by the presence of the road.
Okay, so I have one question then to staff. Option A, has one road come in and then fork off, and option C has a road on the, say, north side and then the east side. Why do we have two access points and then one access point? Because I see that as more of a safety thing. If someone has to get out of one of those lots, they got two ways to get to Beaver Creek Road, and now we're taking that to one way. So saying that we're using less ALR because there's one road compared to two roads. I just want to have a little discussion from staff on why we're looking at two roads for option C.
Sure, thank you for that, Director Boyko. So the main basis for the staff recommendation is the fact that option A would cut the ALR block in half. So it is single owner still. It would be the property owner that would own both sides of that road and would be farming both sides of it. The OCP does speak to maintaining the integrity of ALR land as a contiguous block is the way that we're interpreting that. But again, we are open to the fact that the two roads on the east side and on the north side would take up more land, would result in less land included within the ALR as well. I do think that one of the benefits of the application, as we talked about things like access to lands beyond and the water in the future. I think the fact that these are 20-meter wide right-of-ways that the Land Commission will be looking at is a benefit to that future access to the property. It's just a matter of whether us as a regional district and ultimately the Land Commission is more comfortable with the idea of either having the one access that forks off and kind of trisects the property into three, or whether they would be more amenable to two separate accesses from Beaver Creek Road, one from the north side of the ravine and one from the east side of the ravine, recognizing that also takes up more land. So it's hard to debate the merits of either. I think ultimately from staff's view, it will be up to the Agricultural Land Commission, and we'll be taking their leadership on that. We just wanted to be able to present our view for what we think would be better in terms of access.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Russell?
Thank you. The options that you provide, the three options, are predicated on a 10-lot subdivision, which requires a rezoning. So can you speak to that? Thanks. And is that an error in the staff report? Because I think that alluded to that. So let's hear the facts.
Yeah, so we just received the staff report and had a review of it. And so when we looked at this carefully, we looked at the zoning, and it would require 5-acre parcels, so 2 hectares. So we have about 26 hectares in the non-ALR portion. So the 10 lots does comply with the zoning. When we think about the Strata Property Act, we can lot average. So if you take 10 lots and you need 2-hectare minimum parcel size, that equals about 20 hectares. So we have 26 hectares. What you can factor in is you add up all the area and all the lot sizes, all the common property, except for access. That has to be taken out of the equation, and then you can lot average. So when we, just because of the topography, it really had to be unique. So that's why you see parcel sizes ranging in probably about 0.8 hectares to like 1.4 hectares. There's a range of parcel sizes that really factored in because of the topography. So it does actually comply with zoning through the Strata Property Act and lot averaging. Minimum parcel sizes, yes, it does look like it's under 2 hectares, but really it all equals out to the minimum parcel size of the zone. And we've done this on quite a few different subdivisions with research.
Yes, just to piggyback on that, thank you, Rachel. That was something that we were not considering when we were looking at the staff report. So that is true. The zoning, the A2 zoning requires a 5-acre minimum. Some of these lots are in the sub 2-acre range, but if you're subdividing under the Barrowland Strata Act or the Barrowland Strata subdivision, at least anyways, you can use lot averaging for that. So you know, that would be something that we would look at more closely when that development application is made. You know, if this application is successful.
Thank you very much for that clarification. So we're here as advisors. We're individuals that have experience with farming in our community or otherwise, and have an awareness of the act and some of the policies of the regional district. So what I'm providing is advice to everybody, right? I'm not making a decision or otherwise. And generally speaking, as a farmer and having experience with the agricultural land reserve for many, many years, keeping properties adjacent to active farms that are larger and of a consistent size to those that are being farmed is far better for agriculture for many reasons. For competition for resources, be it water, be it drainage issues and septic and other things, be it for the potential for conflicts between residential properties and farming properties. So I'm really alarmed that we have a circumstance that would enable, without any rezoning or otherwise, the establishment of, you know, 1/2-acre parcels or 3/4-acre parcels adjacent to farmlands. So that isn't so much, I guess, advice to the applicant, but the regional district, when you are reviewing your OCPs and considering this here is a loophole, right, that I think you need to take a long and careful look at. So the other point I have is that when it comes to this application, this is not then just a 2-lot subdivision application. This is not just merely an application subdividing the property along the ALR boundary, which, Colin, you said you could go ahead with without approval. What you do and what is permitted here is going to depend wholly on the impact that you impose on the ALR lands. And that is the roads that you require for that development. And it will be the subsequent public use of those roads in the future as well. So to the members of this committee, we've got a big decision, a bigger decision than was presented to us here in the report, I think, in terms of what we do. When I reviewed this, my suggestion was going to be, why do you need to develop all the property along the river? Why do you have to have access both to the upland or the upstream and the lower stream portions of the property that are divided by the ravine? My suggestion is that you get one access, and that would be along the northern boundary. That provides access to the larger portion of the riverfront property, which you could subsequently develop, but you're not going to get the 10 or 11 lots that you propose, but you're getting something. It then, from the perspective of the ALR, it keeps all of that access to the northern boundaries, not on both boundaries of the property. It does not divide the property in half by road dedications, and it minimizes the potential impact of residential properties up against the ALR property. So, I think that's something that I think as a committee that we should look at recommending to the board, and I would be interested to hear what the other members consider with respect to that. Thank you.
Colin?
Yeah, I would like to respond to your initial question about the access. Going back in time, and Amy and I chatted about a very different proposal at the beginning. This goes back when was first brought on. It was simply the owner wanted to get to lands beyond. There was no development, no anything. It was a very fundamental ask of simply saying, you've got to go through the ALR to get to the non-ALR. That was it. And then if there was going to be any subsequent development, that would occur at a later date, and all these issues would come into discussion, right? And then, in fairness, the owner was saying, well, look, it's a long, protracted process. We should start looking at this options as well, and going through that. We retracted the application, and then I backed off while the engineering was done, and they did their thing. And we came up and said, well, okay, if we're going to try and kill two birds with one stone, now it becomes the discussion items that you're talking about, and about buffering. Should it go here? Should it go there? But even if there was no development, to your point, even if there was no development, for whatever reason, the owner would want to get to access to those lands, and for whatever future purpose. That's how it started out. So I just want to put in the context that the road issue is always there, but what was added to the mix was the southern, right? And I think it's well, quite frankly, what if the issue of the road is done, my job's done, and then it defaults to all these other issues that you're raising right now.
Is there any other questions? Oh, Ray?
Yes, thank you. So independently of Russell, I went through the exact same process and actually came to the exact same conclusion that I felt that would be a better recommendation, is to have it just on the one side and not have road access to the smaller portion. That I thought that was a fair compromise, to have less impact on the agricultural land, but also provide the owner with the access that he's hopefully going to be able to utilize.
Russell?
Yeah, and I just want to add one other point to that, is that if we take these soil capability ratings as what they are, and and if the southern portion or the downstream portion is not included in your development, but even though it's out of the ALR, is retained with the ALR parcel, those properties are rated as a class 3. So the soils on that lower bench that you're proposing to develop that are out of the ALR are rated as a class 3 on the basis of this. So aren't all that bad, and could, if they continue to be part of that parcel, a productive and addition to the development and farming of that land.
Any response? No?
My only response is it's out of the ALR.
I have a question to staff. So, is the agricultural land typically not running to the water's edge?
This one's a little unique. That's not necessarily something we typically see, but in this case, the boundaries have been what they are. So the agricultural acquisition did go through a process in the 90s here to ground truth some of their boundaries. I don't know if these boundaries were adjusted at that time, but Colin might remember that actually. But as land use planners here, we are dealing with the existing boundaries as they are. So, I would say that this one is a little bit more unique than what we would typically see, but those are the boundaries that we know today.
Colin?
I regrettably do remember that. It was a fine tuning review, where the premise of the review was to look at the lands in the ALR to determine if they should be in the ALR, and to look at lands outside the ALR to see if they should be added to the ALR. And I don't know specifically on this property, but you know, to Russell's point, that this land has class 3 rating that's not in, and the ALR portion has class 7 land that's in the ALR. I don't know how much refined. I mean, I could find out, but you know, I have no recollection.
It just seems strange that, seeing a property like this where it's landlocked, where you can't get to it because of ALR.
Yeah, they're likely topography. I mean, if you look at the ALR map along there, both sides of the river have the same thing, where the low bank river side is not included in the ALR, and the upper ledges. But we rely on language.
Lisa?
Historically, that's why farmers have had a bit of an issue with ALR and how the lands were developed, because a lot of the things they said were simply circles done and no real explanation as to what lands are. So like Colin says, you know, you have better lands lower down than you do higher up, and there's a reason why we call our place Stonehaven. So because it's questionable just how some lands were put into the ALR.
Colin?
And that speaks to my concern about the changes to the legislation. I don't want to go too far down that hole, but by saying that landowners can't apply to exclude land anymore is predicated on a misguided belief that all the land in the ALR should be in the ALR. Now, that may be a defensible argument in the Lower Mainland or in other areas, but in areas like this area, the Kootenays, the north, there's areas where I even know some in the Lower Mainland where the persons now are disenfranchised. They're charged with they're owning ALR land that can't be used, literally can't be used for farming. Yet, number one, the ALR Act falsely protects them and also denies them the audience to have those agricultural arguments. So that's the problem I have with this. If, as I said, if we had that latitude, this could have been an entirely different proposal. We don't have that latitude, and the only ability to do that right now is if the regional district wanted to take up the banner to do that. And quite frankly, even they can, I think it's still doing a disservice to the landowners. And I'm not talking the guys on good land. I mean, come on, I'm not talking about that. But there you go. I've had my speech.
So the way I'm interpreting this, correct me if I'm wrong, is there's 2 accesses on option B and C because of the ravine. But option A is just 1 access. And in option B and C, there is no circular route. So Director Boyko was talking about 2 accesses. They are independent rather than 1. Okay, thank you.
Well, and to speak to the options that Russell and Ray have mentioned, the Ag Committee is, you know, you're within your abilities to make a motion to that effect if the AAC wanted to consider a motion that would support an option that is different than the 3 presented. We could certainly craft that. So yeah, it's not necessarily that you are stuck to the advice of those 3 motions, and of course those are as this is an advisory body, those motions would be considered by the board. You would make the decision whether to pass that along to the Land Commission for their decision.
Russell?
Question of the applicant then, if that were the case, if we went for only 1 access and that was to the northern portion, what then is the possibility in terms of the minimum parcel sizes that you might propose? Would they be smaller than what we see here, or would it just be the number of lots in this certain configuration you presented here? So what I'm proposing is that one access would be provided, and that would be along the northern boundary of the property. So on your option C, it would just be this one right here. So you are then getting access to up to 7 of your proposed lots. But my question is given that you're not developing these other lots, would you in turn make these lots smaller and have a larger number of lots in the same area than the 7 that is proposed here? Is that a possibility? I just want to know unintended consequences.
That is a possibility. We would still have the 26 hectares with the 2 hectare minimum that could be lot average to a smaller than 2 hectares.
And just from the staff's perspective, it does get into issues with topography and setbacks and the ability to actually have a feasible building envelope on there too. So knowing the challenges faced at the site, that would be one that I would want to look at time comes, because we're not going to be supportive of lots that are created that are unbuilt.
And another factor is Ministry of Transportation and Transit. They would obviously weigh in on the road, the structure of the road, the steepness of the road. Also, another big factor is emergency access. So we may technically apply for 10 strata lots, but we would have to think about there'd be one way out of there. So that's another factor. Just having the one access doesn't and being able to lot average still doesn't necessarily mean that that's a feasibility wise with topography, emergency access to the Stamp River. There's so many other factors with subdivision that will come into play later on the process. Securing access is number one, and then we'll have to dive into the whole subdivision process after that.
Colin?
And I'll, you all know that. I mean, regardless of the recommendation to the board, assuming it's forwarded to the commission, this is the argument we're going to be having with the commission as well, right? So it's a matter of not being disrespectful to the comments of staff by any stretch of the imagination or the dialogue here. We're just trying to say this was really 2 parts, and my one concern with dealing with the development at the beginning, right? Now it makes sense to deal with it all at once, but was that we would get too far into the weeds on the end development without addressing first the access, right? And who knows how it plays out? As far as we're concerned, access is the primary issue right now, and as my colleagues have pointed out, down the road, the world will unfold as the world unfolds, and will the subdivision be as planned? We don't know. Those are just questions we don't have, and we really can't have any practical discussion in that regard unless we've resolved the ALR issue first, right? And there's the jurisdiction is once it's done by the commission. Let's say they go preferred option A, that doesn't fetter the subsequent jurisdiction or authority of all other agencies, including the regional board, right?
So to staff, so the Ag Advisory Committee can make a recommendation, but all 3 of these will go to the Agricultural Land Commission or whatever the applicant puts in, right?
Yes, so the Ag Committee makes a recommendation to the ACRD board. The ACRD board receives this entire package, and then if they resolve to send that out to the Land Commission for decision, they will do that, and the applicant will have the opportunity to submit options A, B, and C, and any additional information that we talk about here.
Anybody out there? No. Any other questions? Russell?
Seeing no questions, and if there are none, I propose the resolution that the Agriculture Advisory Committee forward the application or recommend that the board forward the application to the Agricultural Land Commission for consideration, and that the recommendation be for one access along the northern boundary of the property only.
I will second that motion.
Thanks, Ray. Okay, is there anything to add to that? All in favor? Brett?
I just want to say we have option A, B, C, and now what's being proposed would be option potentially D for Delta, that only a northern portion to access those 7 properties. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
That would be it.
Okay, thank you. Just making sure we're all up to speed.
Okay, so we all understand? I'll call a question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. So staff will do the report up and that will be going to the board when?
Yeah, so we will modify the report. We'll include that. We'll clarify the zoning in there as well. And then have the committee discussion that will go to the board next week. So next Wednesday, 28th, I believe it is. And yeah, we can let you know how that goes.
One last question. Is there any opportunity to actually continue on past the ravine, over the ravine, or imagine it would be quite costly to bridge it or anything? On the lower, from the one access right along the waterfront.
Yeah, there may be some potential to access on the plan that we show here along Strata Lot 7 and then work back up to Strata Lots 8 through 9. There's the physical constraints of the topography are a challenge to do that though.
There's a development down the road from my place that's a challenge also. It does happen, so I'm I just had that thought in my head, wanted to know. Great, thank you so much for coming and giving us all the information and working with this commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was always gonna be a challenge before, maybe not. So. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we have another application. It's AF 25004 LSW Land Corp. 725 Franklin River Road, Cherry Creek. An agricultural land commission non-adhering residential use application. Staff, please, Amy.
All right. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So the landowner is applying to the Agricultural Land Commission to build up to 6 portable dormitory style housing units on site in order to house up to 20 farm workers that will be needed to expand farm operations to a level to make the farm profitable. The property in question, 725 Franklin River Road, is 69.62 hectares in size, approximately 40 hectares lying within the Agricultural Land Reserve. About half of that ALR portion of the property is open fields. 18.4 hectares of that cleared area is under cultivation to vegetable and greenhouse crops. And the balance of the ALR portion, as well as most of the non-ALR portion, is treed. North McFarland Creek runs north to south through the middle of the parcel, linking Cox Lake to McFarland Creek. And there is a water license in place in the creek to supply up to 74,000 meters cubed of water for irrigation annually. There is a large pond in the southeast corner of the parcel, which was used by previous owners for aggregate extraction and has not been remediated. The southwest portion of the parcel has an active aggregate extraction pit, and that's located on the non-ALR portion. For official community plan notes, the subject property is classified as resource use in the Cherry Creek official community plan with policy 522 to support, among other things, agriculture. The dormitory style housing footprint is located on some of the poorest agricultural land on the parcel, class 4, with a limitation of access water, instead of the better agricultural land currently under cultivation, which is class 3.
The area where the units would be constructed is also located on land that has been altered by the historic aggregate extraction uses. The parcel is bisected north to south by North McFarland Creek, and that would be subject to development permit area, but none of the proposed development is within that 15 meters on each side stretch. And map number 4 on the Cherry Creek OCP for infrastructure and community services does outline an aggregate reserve in the area where the dormitory units would be located. The property owner has moved the gravel extraction operations on the property to an area located to the west on land that's outside of the ALR. The subject property is zoned has 2 zones that affect it, Forest Rural A3 and Forest Reserve A4 districts. The location proposed for the housing units is in the A3 district. The A3 district permits farming and agricultural uses, but does not permit the dormitory units for farm worker accommodation. So a temporary use permit or zoning amendment would be required to support construction of portable dormitory style units if the ALC application is approved. There is a note in ALC policy L26 that the front lot line to the rear opposite side of the total residential footprint shouldn't be more than 60 meters. The applicant has indicated, however, that if the housing units are allowed to be sited where they proposed, that the better agricultural land to the east within that 60-meter setback would then be used for cropping, specifically greenhouses, to expand production. And there is a small parcel of approximately 2 acres of non-ALR land located directly south of the proposed housing unit site. You can see it on the maps on page 38 and 39. It was inspected at the site visit for practicality of moving the housing units to, and therefore removing the need for this non-adhering residential use application. However, it is fully treed and it would be considered by the applicant to be cost prohibitive to move the housing units there. Overall, this proposal represents a net benefit to agriculture as the land proposed for the housing units is unfarmable previous aggregate extraction pit, and supplying housing to farm workers will allow expansion of the intensive vegetable production on site. The farm has been successful in building their business on site and producing food for local markets. There is significant capacity for the expansion of agricultural production if additional staff can be retained to support the farm. Thank you very much. And we do have the applicants here in the room. If there's comments that they want to add, you just have to step up to the mic.
Do you want to come up to the table or to the stand? Okay, thank you. Any questions then? Russell?
I just want to thank you all for all that you do and for making this a viable farm. I was aware of the farm and the status of it before you were there. It has been, as you say, a lot of work. And just to see your products sold in the valley and provided to families and their appreciation for the quality of this products. Thank you. I have a question, maybe it's to staff, and they've provided to us pictures of the proposed housing. And I respect that there will be a need to address zoning or a temporary use permit or otherwise, but I just don't want them to get caught in any other bureaucratic red tape or otherwise if this is successful and they get the approval needed. And that my question is it under our current building code requirements and standards or otherwise, will these be acceptable, and will it be an easy process for them to get these things in place? Because I can imagine with the time taken just to get these approvals and financing and these other things, time will be of the essence for them. So if you don't understand my question, please ask, but I think that was clear.
Appreciate that. No, that's a good question, because that's a big reality here, and we have dealt with similar structures in the past, or dealt with in the same way that a mobile home would be dealt with, so that we would be looking at building permits for the placement on the ground and what the foundation structure looks like, and then how it's connected to services. I do note that they propose to build a new septic field in the area, so that would be a requirement of the building permit process. What I would say that if these are the units that you're looking to proceed with, if the board moves this on to the land commission for decision, I will ask our building inspector to take an initial look at it now to flag any of those concerns that you could start thinking about in the meantime while we wait for the decision from the land commission, because that may speed things up for you a little bit. And like I say, we do have some familiarity with similar units, so I'm sure our inspectors can help get the jump on any questions you may have.
If I could just speak to that. These structures are portable. They are manufactured to Canadian safety standards and meet all the construction requirements for the province of BC and Alberta. No foundations or footings required. They can be set up completely in a day and disassembled in less than a day. So that's why what we're looking at is something temporary to prove that we can viably farm. Then at that point later on in a process years from now, we will look at doing something on a permanent basis, probably on that non-ALR portion of the property.
Thank you. I have Fred and Larry. So Fred?
Thank you. So I just want to expand a bit on what Russell was asking there, just very specifically. Do these portable structures meet the BC building code full stop? And that's a very specific question with regard to how much insulation is there and all these kind of things, and the footing itself. Like, does it have that CZ blah, blah, blah number stamp on the side that says, I am a mobile home, boom?
To answer your question, yes, they do. They meet all the requirements within the province under the
Perfect.
BC building codes.
Perfect. That's good to hear. Secondly, when we say temporary, I don't see anywhere in here on a timeline. Are we looking at a 3-year when it comes back? Because I fully support adding some housing out there and getting as much people growing and food security in the valley, 100%. When this comes back to the board for approval and a temporary use permit, are we going to say that you can do this for 3 years and then one more time of 3 years and then it has to be permanent after that? Or what would be the forward plan? Thank you.
I can speak to that. Yeah, I'm not sure on the timelines. I'll let Wes speak to that. But the mechanics of what we would be considering would be the 3-year temporary use permit for the replacement of the structures that can be renewed an additional 3 years. That gives lots of time to consider what the long-term plans are for the site. You'd always look at issuing a new TUP with different conditions, or look at some rezoning that would be a little bit more permissive to these types of farm worker housing at this site. And that we have spent some time working on agricultural zoning. This was one of the big components of that as well. So I think that's an opportunity for us to revisit how our zoning bylaw deals with farm worker housing, and we can look at ways of being more permissive on that where appropriate.
So final question. With the new ALR rules and the 10 allowable housing units that hasn't been in our zoning bylaw yet, but will be there shortly, why is this even up for consideration? This should just be an automatic stamp and build these things and put some worker housing in and go. Assuming this thing has farm status, which I think it does.
Yeah, I mean, that's, in my view, that's, I have a similar philosophy. This is an operating farm. They have farm status. The Agricultural Land Commission has permissions in place to allow these things. Our zoning bylaw is outdated. So whatever we can do to help support that, we are, as everybody knows, we are going through OCP updates right now, and a lot of those discussions, I believe, are leading towards being more permissible to these types of uses that would support farming in the Alberta Valley. So we're heading towards that. Yes, I agree. I mean, we are strongly supportive of this application, and we'll help the applicants work their way through what they do to get them built. I would hope that the Agricultural Land Commission would be supportive of these as well, recognizing that they do have some allowance for temporary housing on land in the ALRLP.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Okay. Just further to Russell's comments about the farm, I'm quite familiar with it, having been out there before. But I think one of the things, if there's one word from this application that resonates with me, it's sustainability and viability of farming in small operations. And their proposal just makes good, I think, business sense. And from a point of view of farm labor and accommodating it to be able to create sustainability, I'd be really interested in hearing from the farmers here about, how you feel about that aspect of this application.
So I think, very good question. In looking at farming in general, there's somewhat been a shift, and I think we've seen it in the last several years, away from buying produce and buying vegetables out of Mexico, California, Oregon, Washington, to more going to buy local. And it reflects in the prices that we're paying in the grocery store for our food, which in essence makes it, I think, easier for small or moderate sized farms to make a go of it. If you drive through the Lower Mainland, there's an awful lot of successful operations as well in Okanagan, the Soyuz, Kamloops area. We have a captive market here on the island that we can take advantage of.
Thank you.
Thanks. Is there any other questions? Lisa?
Just a comment. Agriculture in general is, we've lost a lot of farming and stuff like that so to be able to see an operation acquire some more workers, that's why those of us that, have family on site on farm like to be able to have the ability to house them as well, because there's no point having them in town and then having to go all the way out. So anytime that a farm can benefit to be able to grow more food so that their production limits, or not limits, but increases, is certainly a win for everybody. And it's something I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Someone prepared to make a motion?
Larry?
Larry? You're making the motion?
Yes.
Okay, I'll read it out. That the Agriculture Advisory Committee recommend that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors forward ALC application AF 25004 to the Agricultural Land Commission for decision. Need a seconder. Russell, okay. All in favor? That carries. Thank you.
Yeah, question. Madam Chair, I have a subsequent resolution too, if you would oblige, and that is that the committee recommends that staff of the regional district assist the applicant in the timelines and approvals required that they have control of to ensure that this application is supported, does meet health and safety requirements, but is supported on a very timely basis. That would be the gist of my resolution, and I'd just like to give an example, and that is, if there's a time period required for a temporary use permit, let's get the application going now. Let's get the process started and moving now, if the board supports this. And let's make sure that the building inspector is really knowledgeable about the information that Wes has shared here, so that there won't be any hurdles to cross at any point in the future should this be successful. So just my recommendation is that staff support the applicant and see that this is processed in a timely manner as best as possible.
Have a seconder? Lisa? Further comments? Nope. Okay, all in favor? That passes. Thank you. So
Yes, thank you.
it's always a
And
challenge.
just the update on where this is, we're going to also be going to the board next Wednesday with those motions in place and the package we have here. So we will let you know how that goes. You're welcome to attend and watch those meetings if you want. You won't have a chance to speak to it, but they are public. So, but you know, otherwise we'll be phone call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Enjoy the
you.
other ones as well.
Thanks for coming. It's always good to see people come with their applications. Yeah, you too. So back to staff. Is there any reports? There,
Nothing to report. No.
any late business? Is there any questions, comments from the public? Zoom or emails to the regional district?
Nope.
No?
No responses. Thank you.
Okay, so we need a motion to adjourn. Thank you. All right, we're all in. Thanks.
Thank you for chairing, Penny. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you,
Bye.
everybody. Really appreciate it.